Hi, this is Suchitra Vijayan, and you're joining us for the weekly Polis Project's Dispatches series. We've been away for 3 weeks, and much has happened during this time. As we return with an important issue that happened in Thoothukudi in Tamil Nadu. In June, the father and son duo, Jairaj and Phoenix, were brutally murdered within the brutally murdered within as a custodial death of the father and son. The duo had been beaten, brutally tortured, and sexually assaulted. And joining us today to discuss not only this incident, but also the larger questions of impunity, police violence, and how we move forward from here are Godson Daily Das, who is a journalist based in Thoothukudi district in Tamil Nadu. He works for the New India Express and reports on environmental violations, water resources, illegal sand mining. He's covered the firing against the anti-sterilite protests in May 2018 and the recent Sathankulam custodial deaths. Also with us is lawyer Akila, who's based in Chennai. She's a co-founder of Paravai Advisors, and she's a former faculty member of the National Law University in Delhi, the National Law School in India, University at Bangalore, and the National Judicial Academy. Akila also has law degrees from the National Law School, Oxford, and the New York University. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.
Um, Godson, I would like to start with you. You reported this story extensively, and you're one of the journalists on the front line of the story. Can you start and lay out what happened during this and what led soon after the custodial deaths?
Yeah, actually, on June 19 evening, the father and son duo, Mr. Jairaj and his son Benix, were taken into custody for inquiry. On the same night, they were brutally thrashed and subjected to humiliation throughout the night, and throughout the day. And the next morning, they were produced before the judicial magistrate, uh, and he had remanded him at Kovilpatti subject. And in the meantime, that during this procedure, they were subjected to severe torture in the custody. And uh, one of the friend of Benix told me that they wanted to meet him at many times in between in the late night, and the police officials refused because they wanted to meet and give some legal support because he was an advocate as well. But the police officers denied any entry of the locals, and being a trader, they were enjoying support of the local traders associations as well. The traders were also denied permission. uh, One of the question here is that they were not such a criminal to be treated in that way. That's what the entire Tamils are asking for. What the only problem, the only mistake they done was they were opening the shop beyond the permitted time the previous day, because that is on June 18. Uh, they had uh, uh, they had opened the shop, and one of the sub inspectors, Mr. Balakrishnan, had questioned them, and he had forced them to shut the shop. That's what the only violation they made. They breached the lockdown restrictions which has been clamped here due to the COVID-19. But there were no other problems. They had no any link with any criminal activities in the past as well. They are just a common man as any, just like any other man. That's what uh, they were immediately, if they had been given immediate medical assistance, they would have been alive now also.
And I just have one more follow-up question. Since the custodial deaths, what legal action has been taken against the police officers involved?
As far as concerned with Sathankulam custodial deaths, over 10 policemen, including 4 officials, which is one inspector and 3 sub-inspectors, have been arrested so far by CBCID, and the investigation is under CBI right now.
Akila, I kind of want to come to you. Could you introduce this idea of custodial deaths? What is custodial deaths? And place it within the larger, not only this case, but the larger context of policing in India.
Yeah, sure. Custodial death is one of the most egregious kinds of human rights violation, one of the most egregious forms of police excess. So, this is where the police is in custody of a person because they have arrested them, because they have detained them for ostensibly, the purposes of investigation of a crime or for any other reason. And whilst they are in custody of the person, where there is brutality involved, which leads to the death of a person, right? That is simply put custodial death. Unfortunately, this is a common phenomenon. This is nothing that is rare or unheard of, either in Tamil Nadu or in India, generally speaking. Custodial torture leading to death of a person is unfortunately way too common. In this particular case, as Godson has already laid out the facts for us, the FAR, the official police version, states that that Jairaj and Benix had violated lockdown norms, that they had kept their shop open for longer. And the official version is that the police had asked them peacefully to disperse, to close the shop and leave. And the police report states that the father and son refused to. They abused the police, threatened to kill them, that they lay on the ground and they rolled and sustained injuries by themselves in a voluntary manner. So, and this led to an FAR being registered. And again, timeline of this is a little bit suspect. And there are again witness statements, I believe CCTV footage, which contradicts the timeline that the police sets out. In any case, they are taken to the police station where they are brutalized and they sustain very severe injuries, including anal injuries. They are then taken to the general hospital for medical examination the next morning, where the medical officer certifies them as fit for detention, records only part of the injuries, does not record the injuries sustained due to, the police brutality. And they are taken then to the judicial magistrate in the afternoon. Again, there are witness statements that they were in the hospital for around 3 4 hours, and there was this delay because the doctor was trying to stabilize the bleeding. They actually were really severely injured, and this is not recorded by the doctor. Now, when they go to the judicial magistrate, according to law, every detention has to be authorized by a judicial magistrate by 24 hours. So, within 24 hours, they are taken to the magistrate. Again, there are written statements that say that the magistrate was standing in his balcony, that he, in a mechanical manner, authorized the detention, hardly saw both detainees, did not ask if they were injured, did not inquire further into the matter, and mechanically authorized the detention and sent them. Thereafter, Jairaj and Phoenix were detained in the sub-jail, in Kovalpatti sub-jail. And the next day is when, or I think a couple of days later, is when Benix first complains of severe illness. He's taken to the general hospital. In a few hours, Mr. Jairaj is also taken to the general hospital, and they ultimately pass away on the 22nd and the 23rd, I believe. So, this is a case where there has been a complete breakdown and failure of the criminal justice system. The law specifies a lot of safeguards, checks and balances, in order to ensure that there are no police brutalities, in order to ensure that there is no violation. pre or post detention. So we have the CRPC, the Code of Criminal Procedure, which specifies several provisions, again, informed by this background. Again, India is no stranger to police brutality and police excesses. So we have a substantial jurisprudence that deals with the way in which arrests should be made, the kind of safeguards that need to be put in place, and the detention authorization of detention before the judicial magistrate, medical examination regularly, etc., are parts of this jurisprudence which ensures safeguard of human rights. So in this particular case, I think we can see dereliction of duty of several state authorities and complicity of this entire chain, which I think had broken down. Firstly, the medical officer who originally examined Jairaj and Benix did not record the injuries truthfully. Secondly, when the judicial magistrate saw them and authorized their detention, again, did it in a mechanical way, did not apply his judicial mind, did not ask about injuries, did not even find out if detention was necessary. Again, remember, we are dealing with the lockdown, and unnecessary detention or crowding of jails is never a good idea. So again, we need to, I think, look at it from this larger background. Uh, so there has been a very serious violation of every I think authority involved. Now the this case got prominence, and I think Godson can speak to us more about the way in which this was reported. But this gained a lot of prominence in social media, as we know, and thereafter when the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court took this matter up and has started supervising the investigation. It was transferred to the CBCID, which is a specialized state police agency, and the government volunteered to hand over this investigation to the CBI, and it is now being investigated by the CBI.
Um, that brings us to the announcement that we will be taking questions from our audience. So please send in your questions to the Polis Project's handle. And one of the records that we have is that the National Crime Record Bureau report says that between 2001 and 2018, there were over 1,727 custodial deaths in India, in which 26 policemen were convicted, 333 charge sheeted, and then 810 cases were registered against them. Which means that this is not only a judicial matter. This also seems like an issue that affects people post the violence. Godson, I kind of want to come back to you and ask you. One of the things that you flagged earlier was this idea of what happens to people after. Once the death is recorded, once it's reported, what happens to the people who survive this torture and what happens to their families? Can you kind of lay that out for us, please?
Actually, once they are tortured in the custody, they are threatened not to reveal it outside, or otherwise, since the authority is empowered much more than any other common man, they can force them in any other petty cases and ensure them inside the jail itself. So, out of panic, they will not reveal the injuries they sustained in the custody in the hands of police to the outsider, or otherwise he will never seek uh, medical treatment on the grounds that they were beaten by a police officer. So that's what actually is happening here. In most of the cases, they just go away and they never report it to any other authority to get a justice for this kind of torture. Sometimes most of the people who are who sustains such injuries will be just a suspect. They will not be an accused in any other case. The only thing is they are under suspicion. They are investigated on just a suspicion. So for them, totally there is no justice rendered, because on the other side they will be under threat of the police officials as well. The society also at one point of time they don't come to the terms that for everyone we have to get a justice like that. So sometimes when the situation is conducive for the for making such a for raising voice against them. They come together, but not all the cases they join hands to protest like that.
I also want to go back and raise this idea of how this case became famous. Custodial deaths, of course, are, as both you and Akila have pointed out, is the norm. So tell us how this case becomes a social media spectacle, but also how local journalists reported this case.
Actually, in the first place, they reported that the Bennings had an altercation with the police official, and that's what he was beaten up badly like that. But later, knowing the intensity and the tone and the protesting relatives, they the real issues came to the light the next day. Actually, this uh, for the first 2 days, they did not know what actually happened until some reporters uh, uh, went into the area and spoke with some of the friends of Benix and Jairaj and the trader associations. Only few of the eyewitnesses came forward to speak out what actually happened, and after their narration of the events, after they revealed the chain of events, the entire thing came to the light. Actually, they were panicked also. Only one guy who was an advocate uh, reveal came forward to tell something. Uh, After that, uh, many people were involved because some of their friends had accompanied him when the duo were taken to GH, and some other people had escorted them to judicial magistrate, and after that the both were taken to sub jail in one of vehicle hired vehicle that belongs to one of the Benix friends. So police very diligently handled this issue, like because their vehicle will be bloodied, they have asked them to hire a private vehicle. So so in that case, everyone knows the issue. Not only just a few, many knows the issue, but they were not coming out to speak. So after convincing them to ensure justice for the Benix and his father, they came out to speak to us.
Akila, I kind of want to come and discuss something that you flagged earlier. In this case, it's about Tamil Nadu and not only the reporting and violence, but also how the Tamil cinema deeply impacts and influences Tamil culture. One of the things that you flagged was how custodial deaths and encounters are glorified.
Yeah.
Someone, as you know, late Mrs. Pandian said, Tamil cinema is a vehicle for not only representing Tamil culture but also shaping Tamil culture. And you have
Yes.
these great movies, big but no, not great, but big budget movies going out. And someone recently said that for every aspiring superstar, one has to do a police movie. It's doing a police movie which marks and signals an
Yeah.
arrival of a superstar in Tamil Nadu cinema. So, talk to us about this cultural representation of police and police encounter and how that shapes the culture and also public's reaction to this police film.
Yeah. So I think not just in popular media, but even in news media, there's a lot of glorification, a lot of valorization of police officers who are, who are vigilante, who don't, who engage in police brutality, who indulge in encounter killing, which is basically a euphemism for custodial murder. So we have seen that they receive public adulation, vernacular, so Tamil newspapers as well as English media even would glorify them, would speak about them as heroes. They would hoard the headlines, and they receive a lot of popular support in that way. What we also see is that these are the officers who also get gallantry awards and out of turn, promotions, etc., which is prohibited under the NHRC guidelines. If a person is involved in an encounter death, they cannot receive gallantry awards, they cannot receive out of term promotions, but they are valorized in every such manner. And like you rightly pointed out, uh, there is a long list, there's a long history of extremely popular films which made a lot of our superstars and these big heroes, which valorize police encounters, which valorize police torture. They are seen as people who are don't feel constrained by this unnecessary law. And this all of this builds a tolerance and even approval for police brutality, whereby police brutality is seen as and internalized by the people, internalized by the police force as an essential technique of investigation, essential method of investigation. And encounter deaths again enjoy a lot of support and approval because they are seen as necessary in order to protect the law and order situation. There is often, of course, the news and media painting the person who is killed in an encounter as a history sheeter, as an evil element, right? And as this valiant cop, as someone who has, rid the society of this evil. So when we have this larger narrative going on, there is a lot of support in our culture, and also we see how uh, there are photographs that are paraded, all the time in our local media of detainees wearing casts of broken arms, broken legs, and often the reason that's assigned is that they fell in the bathroom. There was a slippery bathroom, and in fact, the SHRC has even taken this up, I believe, pursuant to a complaint that was made, and asked the question of, well, how slippery are your bathrooms that only arrested persons are falling down? How many police officers have fallen down? What cleaning supplies do you buy? So there is a mockery of the system, but a lot of approval for this. And I think one of the reasons why the this particular instance of Jairaj and Benix did gather more momentum, gather more support, is like Godson said, they were not considered as criminals in any manner. A lot of the time, where people are picked up and tortured, it is in furtherance of criminal investigation, oftentimes, for even petty offenses, but involving money. So it could be cheating, it could be theft. The person who's picked up is either suspected of the crime, or there is a lot of pressure on the police to show some progress. So they pick up some random person who may be unconnected to the crime, but still are then brutalized in order to coerce, elicit some kind of confession, right? And there are also instances where it may not be a person who's suspected of a particular crime, but a family member. In the same Sathankulam police station, there's an incident a month ago of one Mahendran, who was a 29-year-old migrant worker, who was picked up because I believe his brother was suspected of murder. His brother could not be found, he had absconded. So in order to pressurize the brother, a family member, so in this case Mahindran was picked up, he was brutalized, and a month later he died. And again, to go back to your question about what happens to the family, uh, like Godson pointed out, it is intimidation, it is threat. It also sometimes is hush money that's given to shut people up. It is the promise of government jobs. It sometimes, like in this case, is because of the fear of the family that another family member would be implicated. In this case, the family, I'm sure, were also afraid that their other son would be implicated and would face dire consequences. So
Akila,
the
I'm just
larger
going
culture.
to. Sorry, Akila, I'm just going to
Sorry,
kind
yeah.
of quickly just interrupt because we have a bunch of audience questions coming in and we're running out of time. So I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that the audience questions are addressed as well. Um, Two questions. One directly to Godson is, do you two questions directly to Godson is that first thing it says, um, this is a question from one of our audience members in Australia, which says, um, do you think caste played an important role in amplifying the issues of what happened to the father and son duo? Given that a lot of the police violence is targeted towards the marginalized community, Does the fact that the Nadar community in this particular area was a powerful community, was that helpful? So that's the first question for you, Godson. The second question to you is, do you see as a reporter a difference between police violence between the AIADMK and DMK? For our non-audiences based outside of Tamil Nadu, they are referring to the two different political parties in Tamil Nadu, the AIADMK and DMK. Godson, can you answer these two together, and then we will kind of, we have a bunch of questions for Akila as well,
All right.
so we'll
Yes.
go to
Yes.
Akila.
Yes. As a reporter, I'm working here. Uh, this Nadar community, yes, as you said, it is powerful in the southern region, but we cannot tell that this caste power led to the arrest of the police officials, because the uh, injuries made to the two traders and their feelings and their family members cry, and these things amplify the issue. And really, I don't see the caste, because yes, even the trader association flagged statewide shutdown on in order to seek immediate action into the case. But anyhow, yes, most of the people, most of the powerful police officers are coming from the marginalized community, but also some of the other policemen, constables are from the same Nadar community as well. So we cannot tell that it is because they belong to the Nadar community, the case, or they were able to arrest, they pressurized the government to arrest these policemen. And in the second question, as you asked, uh, this ADMK and the DMK, which are ruling the states for the past around 50 years, during their tenure, there have been many custodial deaths, and really the uh, justice rendering system during this period is not quite good. That's in this Sathankulam issue also, this ADMK, you cannot directly charge the ADMK government for all these things. But one thing is, after uh, after the issue broke out in the social media and all those things, the government should have immediately arrested the suspected policeman. It ruled a way for the court to take over the case, and after that only effective actions came upon the policeman. That is what uh, that is what made this government a setback for this government.
Akila, I'm kind of going to put the audience questions to you now. They're directly pointed to you. It says, as a lawyer and an educator, do you think the law education, the legal education that we provide for our police officers is not enough? Or in general, do you think there has to be a better way to educate the police officers, the lawyers, and even citizens and others, and even judges about what custodial torture means? Can you please talk about your experience of lack of failure, as in they're talking about lack of judicial education, and can it be improved?
Okay. Uh, Absolutely. In terms of education and sensitization that's provided to police officers, I do think it's insufficient. There are programs, there are police training institutions that exist, which do conduct programs with external faculty, with their own faculty. But sensitization is definitely something that is lacking amongst the judiciary, amongst the police officers, everybody. That is absolutely true. Also, what is I think important here is that the police continues to act as a has a colonial hangover, and I think there's enough that is written and said about this issue, where police officers still do act as a force against its citizenry rather than providing protection and providing a service to the citizenry.
And I kind of want to come back to the question of the state, the caste, and violence in Tamil Nadu, and I want both Akila and Godson to respond. I know in this case, Godson, you said that perhaps caste was not the main reason, But as a reporter, do you feel that caste is something that deeply affects how who is in the receiving end of violence, how the information is reported? I would like to hear from both you and Akila, please.
Yes, of course. The caste plays a vital role in these kinds of custodial deaths and other policing activities also. Uh, the thing is that the people in the southern Tamil Nadu is uh, uh, always exhibit themselves as a caste warrior. Some people highlight their caste as the highest one, higher than the other, and the other people counter them. So this is a normal phenomena happening in the south, and the police people always uh, believe that controlling the people in the southern Tamil Nadu is quite hard because they are emotionally outburst at times, and it is critical to handle them also. Uh, so in these areas, the cash help them also sometimes because they deploy a police official to catch an accused from his same community, so that he can trace and he can catch him easily, and there won't be any other problem in the future also, because the people belong to same community only had treated him like that. So uh, caste is one of the main reason uh, for various issues also, because people from different communities uh, uh, clash together for various reasons during the festivals, during any other functions like that. So in these cases, people who belong to a policeman who belong to a particular committee will be deployed in that area, so that they can manage the crowd, and they can influence that area big shots, and that area commercial traders, so that the people will pay heed to their concerns.
Akila, could you also
Yeah.
respond to this, please?
Yeah, sure. So I definitely think caste was a reason that uh, that amplified this particular case. We've been discussing, custodial deaths are far too common, and when the deceased is, and usually the deceased is a poor person belonging to a backward caste, Dalit, Adivasis, etc. And in those cases, we've seen that it's extremely difficult to put the law in motion. It's extremely difficult to, make this issue go big, right? In any manner, and it's for a variety of reasons. One is, of course, the police and the state authorities do close ranks. So, in issues of police excesses, it's extremely difficult to get information, get documents, anything to make a particular case. And this is especially difficult for people from backward communities to overcome these hurdles. And it's not just the police. I think even the judiciary and other authorities do not have a good track record in protecting the marginalized people, particularly. So, in this case, among other reasons, and I think it definitely is a function of caste, a function of class, a function of when this happened, there was a lot of discontent about the manner in which the police was enforcing lockdown norms. A lot of lathi charges, a lot of humiliating sort of corporal punishment that was being doled out, right? So, in this context, I think this particular case got picked up by the media, got the attention of people and the authorities.
I also want to kind of talk about the reform process in the United States right now. Following the Black Lives Matter, there's now a strong, growing, and a powerful movement to defund police. Um, I was wondering if both of you can talk to this idea about what is reform. Do you believe that the police system in India can be reformed? Second, I know this is quite this is quite a hot button issue. Assuming that reform is what is we believe is needed, How do you both see this playing out? Godson, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Akila.
Yes, actually, policing and protecting the law and order in the region is all to benefit the public, and it is supposed to protect the people from any other untoward incidents and any other motivations and other illegal activities. So, in that case, in every case, the person who is accused of some criminal activities is supposed to be reformed and led back to the same society. That's what the reform is supposed to be. In this case, the police are supposed to or just or just a protector of law and order as their superiors advice, and the prison department and the judiciary have more role in reforming the accused. And when every accused take the issue to the high courts, they are in prison for so many years, and finally when they come out, they are returning as a person who is fit to live in the same society. Yes.
Akila,
Yeah,
yeah, could you kind of
sure.
respond to your.
Yeah. Yeah, so I agree that we need a drastic reimagining of the police force. Police reforms are definitely needed, and it's been on the anvil for a long time now. There's the famous Prakash Singh case that spoke about how the police force needs to be again examined and perhaps even reconstituted, and it's all the more necessary now because over the past few years we've seen how protesters are persecuted, how the police basically act as henchmen for the ruling political party. So it is definitely needed, but I doubt whether we do have the political will to carry this on because successive governments at the state level as well as the central government uh, do kind of enjoy the advantages of the police being being vigilante in a particular sense. So one example is how the UN Convention Against Torture has still not been ratified. It was signed by India, I believe, in 1997, and it still has not been ratified, despite, well, international embarrassment upon the fact that India has not done this. The Law Commission has recommended that the convention should be ratified, but successive governments have not done it. So I doubt if we do have the political will to carry that on.
We have a bunch of audience questions. Do both of you have a few more minutes? I know we are coming
Sure.
close and we have 2 minutes left, but if both of you are willing, we could go on for a few more minutes and put those audience questions to you. Godson, are you okay with that too?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, Godson, we have questions for you. Some of them are not directly related to this case, but I'll put them to you, and please feel free to answer them as you fit. One of the questions is it's addressed to both of you. Is as given the sorry, I have to rephrase this question. Given the current condition in India, where journalists, lawyers, and right defenders are being regularly picked up, do you as a journalist feel, um, do you change the way you report your reporting because you feel that your reporting might, I think this is based on the recent instances where a bunch of reporters were picked up. And as a follow up to this question, the person also puts it to you, Akila, is that as a lawyer, do you also feel that there is a growing sense of fear amongst lawyers in this country about addressing and taking up issues, given that Sudha Bharadwaj and others are currently, lawyers like Sudha Bharadwaj are currently being held for defending the most marginalized and vulnerable? Gautam, do you want to start, and then Akila can kind of take over from there? Do you feel, you think the reporters are reporting differently because there's a genuine fear that they might be targeted for reporting, especially given what's happening in Tamil Nadu right now?
Yes, actually, it depends on the issue they take. Sometimes when they take crucial issue involving politicians and higher authorities, bureaucrats, and it will be yeah, we cannot rule out that there will be a threat from the higher ups. Definitely there will be. Uh, but in as far as this Sathankulam issue is concerned, here I did not feel any problem in reporting that what happened actually, because it was purely a public mobilized issue, because public wanted the justice for Benix and Jairaj, and no one can interfere, no politician were allowed to interfere in the justice system, because even the ruling party minister had said that it was not a custodial death, because both had died only in the jail, like that and all, but still public uh, did not believe that and did not give up their spirit on fighting for justice on behalf of the two traders. In this case, since no politicians were involved, there was no problem in reporting as well.
Akila, could you respond to
Yeah.
the question about Sudha Bharadwaj being slapped with UAP, and as a lawyer, how that affects your own decisions?
Yeah, I think it does have a chilling effect down the line, and it does deter people from taking up, controversial, difficult cases. Closer to home, around the CAA protests, etc. Uh, Even in Tamil Nadu, we had lawyers who had gone to help people who were detained, and they were then detained themselves. So we have seen these instances closer to home, which definitely put a dampener. And on the other hand, we also have a lot of intolerance amongst the bar itself, which deters people from taking on cases in controversial, especially terrorist cases, or cases involving child sexual abuse, etc. We've seen bar associations passing resolutions which say that lawyers cannot represent a particular person because they consider it wrong, they consider it evil or whatever. So there are a lot of these factors which I think definitely do threaten the independence of the legal profession, and will make a person think twice uh, about whether or not they want to take up an issue, because there definitely is a threat that of you're putting your reputation on the line, sometimes you're putting your life on the line.
As we come, I think we're coming to the end of the segment. I just want to hear some closing remarks from both of you, and then we will close it up. Uh, Godson, could you give us your? I know that you wanted to talk about um, idea of justice. Maybe if you want to finish our closing remarks about what you think about that, and then we can close it out today.
Yes, not only Jairaj and Bennings had suffered such a humiliation in the hands of police, many innocent suspects have also suffered the same. And everyone should be given justice. And it is vested with our honorable high courts, and they should ensure all the custodial victims are rendered with the justice, and the police officials who are involved in such a inhuman manner are held accountable.
Akila?
Yeah, I think what justice in this case should look like is swift investigation. Investigation, especially right now, I believe is crucial. Making sure that sufficient medical evidence, forensic evidence, etc., is properly dealt with, properly analyzed. That there is vigilant and continued scrutiny of the court as well as civil society, because let's face it, we've gotten this far only because the civil society was involved. So I hope there is this sustained momentum, not just for this case, like Godson said, also in similar cases, and hopefully also, changing of the law, where we ratify the Convention Against Torture, where we, in spirit, implement already existing human rights protections.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And as you all know, Polis Project is a not for profit collective, and do support us on Patreon. In the meantime, we have more questions coming in. And if both Akila and Godson are okay, I'm going to pass it along to you, and maybe we can do another segment as well. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.